Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So I guess this video is a quick preview for Jarrell Miller versus Andy Ruiz Jr. This fight goes down on the undercard of Terence Crawford versus Israel Madrimov, and it's part of a really good card in general. And I have to say, for whatever reason, I'm actually quite looking forward to this fight. Now, I am guilty of sometimes looking forward to these random sort of out of the blue fights, but it's a little bit of a freak show. Two big fat fuckers going at it. Two guys who primarily fight on the front foot. Two guys who can be exciting. And for where both guys are at in their careers, I think it will be fun. And I actually think it's a fight that kind of makes sense for both guys. You know, Jarrell Miller is coming off a loss. He's coming off a lot of controversy. Obviously, he lost to Dubois. Prior to that, he was banned for several years due to drug violations. Many would have thought that the Dubois loss may have been the final nail in the coffin. However, he's got a well-known opponent in Andy Ruiz. And him winning this fight would put him back in the mix for some big fights, you know, maybe against a guy like Joseph Parker or Caballel, for example. And Ruiz, you know, again, very inactive in recent years, Andy Ruiz. He's not fought since September of 2022. And he's not looked good for quite some time, let's be honest. He hasn't looked good for a long, long time. Ruiz's last 3 wins, Luis Ortiz in September of 2022, didn't look good. He then beat Areola in May of 2021, didn't look good. And obviously lost to Anthony Joshua in December of 2019 in their rematch. And of course in that fight, he didn't look good. So Ruiz has been inactive. He's kind of lost place in the public consciousness. And this is his opportunity to re-announce himself. Now, going into this fight, many people are picking Ruiz as favourite, as am I. However, I don't think this fight's going to be as straightforward as a lot of people are making out. Number one, do we trust that Andy Ruiz has trained all that hard for this bout? Not really. Having said that, has Miller? Maybe not, but having said that, even if Miller's out of shape, I still suspect him to throw more punches than Andy Ruiz. Again, Ruiz hasn't looked good for quite some time. That's playing on my mind as well. He looked awful against Chris Areola, a washed Chris Areola. Put down Andy Ruiz, I believe, if memory serves me correct. Ultimately, again, ever since that standout win over Anthony Joshua back in It was June of 2019. He hasn't looked good since then, plus the inactivity. So I'm finding it really hard to put any real stock in Andy Ruiz. Don't get me wrong. He's the more naturally talented fighter here. He's a harder puncher, much harder puncher than Jarrell Miller. He puts his shots together much better. He's got far superior hand speed. He's got the tools to really tune up Miller. It's just whether he can remain active enough against Jarrell Miller, because if he can't, you could see him losing rounds in this fight. As basic and as crude as Miller is, he works hard round by round. He's got that in his locker, maybe not as much as he did pre-drug ban, but he can still work relatively hard for a man of his size. Plus he's got a good chin, he can take some stick, and yeah, he can stick to you. You know, he struggled against Dubois because Dubois was able to get the jab off and maintain range. And, you know, Miller really struggled with that when Dubois was boxing at range and throwing the straight shots. That's not really Ruiz's game. He does have a good jab, but primarily he uses that jab to get closer to you, to close that distance. You know, Ruiz is best when he's walking into your wheelhouse, you know? And when you engage him, that's when he can throw those combinations. That's when he can punch in between your punches and land those counters, land those crisp punches that can really take an opponent by surprise. Of course, we saw that against Joshua in their first fight when Ruiz upset the apple cart, right? Joshua got too involved, he got too careless, and he walked into a perfect shot by Ruiz. He never recovered, and Ruiz won. So yeah, I mean, Ruiz is not going to pose the same problems as Dubois in terms of like the jab, the long-range boxing, nor the long-range power punching, but, you know, on the inside, I'm assuming this fight is going to be fought on the inside and at mid-range. I've got no doubt that Ruiz is a better puncher up close and at mid-range. I've got no doubt that Ruiz has better hand speed than Miller, better punch technique than Miller, better combinations than Miller. He's just a much more talented fighter than Miller all round, you know? You look at Ruiz and you say to yourself, you know, maybe you didn't realise your full potential. But regardless, despite me thinking Ruiz is better, more talented, etc., I do wonder what happens if he goes in there, he engages with Miller, and he can't hurt Miller. He can't get his respect quite the same as he did to Joshua, for example. What happens? Miller's not as cute, Miller's not as crafty, Miller's not as technical as Ruiz. But he can throw. And maybe, just maybe, Ruiz struggles with the output of Miller. Maybe we see Ruiz land the more eye-catching shots, but they're not frequent enough. And Miller's working away, landing those clubbing sort of shots that don't look great, but they're still landing. I can see multiple rounds in this fight looking like that, where Ruiz is landing the eye-catching shots, but Miller may be landing more clubbing sort of shots kind of thing. Don't look as good, but maybe he's landing more. That's where I think Ruiz could struggle in this fight, is the output. But again, I can't count on this guy of having a good training camp and that he's going to turn up in shape, he's going to turn up fit. We've been burnt by Ruiz before, so I don't really trust either one of these guys, and that's why I like this fight. Miller looked pretty out of shape in the Dubois fight, to be honest, but what I'm trying to say is that long and short of it, this is all over the place, I realise that. But long and short of it, I kind of think this is going to be a lot more competitive and fun than people think it will be. I'm taking Ruiz, don't get me wrong. But don't be shocked to see an upset. Because Miller winning would be an upset, right? But would I be shocked? Not really. You have to go back and watch Ruiz's last few fights. And again, I know Miller didn't look great against Dubois, but look at Ruiz versus Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz was about 752 years old. And when he wasn't getting dropped, he was winning most of the rounds. If he just stayed on his feet, he would have won that fight. And that was a way past it Luis Ortiz, who many people in the YouTube boxing community and the wider boxing community said was overrated to begin with. And Ruiz nearly lost to that guy. If Ortiz was a couple of years younger, I think he probably would have won, to be honest. Then of course you have the Chris Arreola fight. I mean, I don't think this one is as one-sided as a lot of people are saying, to be honest. And I'm quite looking forward to it, being the degenerate I am. I'm looking forward to it. Two fat motherfuckers going at it. Neither guy can really move their feet that well. It's going to be a good fight, man. It's going to be a good fight. I'm looking forward to it. I've got Ruiz on points. Could be controversial. I don't think anybody's getting knocked out. And I wouldn't be shocked for an upset. Looking forward to it. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe you guys think I'm crazy, but I actually think this one's going to be competitive. But I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts. Let me know below. Who have you got winning? Why and how? Who and how? All that good stuff. Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Del Boy. Peace.